your weakness is their way out. So, you know what? People say they don't have time to work out or to draw, to do all these things. I was like, bullshit. Like, you don't have all the things I have going on. But, if I do all these things and I've got all these things going on, then they can see that there's no way out for you. Like, you have to do it.
There's no excuse. It's
so
like,
as
if
I
can do it,
begin
you
to
can
like
do it.
nail down my routine, magically everyone else starts to draw, work out, and do all these things too. And if you give yourself a pass, then everyone else is going to give themselves a pass too. No one's going to, especially the people who work with you, no one's going to work as hard as you. It's not their business.
Right.
But they're going to do what they feel is beneficial to them. But if you say it's going to be beneficial to them, show them. And every time I do all the things I'm supposed to do, I get better at all those things too.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, we're here with Andy Pho, at Andy Pho on Instagram. He's an incredible artist, father, teacher, and we're really excited to talk with him today.
Yeah, I feel like we had a lot of good conversations this morning.
I moved a little bit.
Already.
Is it still good too? I'm so sorry. Cool.
Yeah, I normally try to save like the good questions for the podcast, but I don't know. Like I said, like I feel like when we don't script it, the conversation just goes where it goes.
You can always revisit some questions or topics.
I don't think we've ever like run out of stuff to talk about. Like I always feel like we could do like way more, But
And especially with you, I have a feeling it's going to be easy
all right.
to just talk.
yeah, you're a busy guy. You own the studio. You do mentorship stuff. Super into the fitness thing.
Yeah.
The motivational stuff. Take us through like a day in the life. Like
Yeah.
A day is up at 4:30. Within 10 minutes, get downstairs, meditate for 10 minutes, draw for 30 minutes, work out for an hour. Then 30 minutes, that last 30 minutes is like social media posting, getting ready for the day, and then cold shower before my family wakes up. 7 o'clock, get my daughter ready for school, and then by like 8:15, 8:30, head over to the shop. Then in the shop from like 8:45 to about 7:30, and I'll start painting for like 10, 15 minutes. Get ready for the client to show up. Clients show up at 10:30. We do gratitude breathwork share at 11 to get like the day started.
Is that with just your client, or is that with the whole studio?
All the artists and all the clients. So sometimes we'll have like 10, 12 people sitting in a circle doing some deep breath work. And then when the day's over, head home. On the way home is like a coaching call, a mentoring call with the client. Home by like 8:30. Maybe get to catch some time with my wife. Sleep by 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then repeat.
Damn.
Wow. And
So
you do that every day?
Every day. And then on the weekends, that's like, all right, after, well, let's see, Saturdays, business development and tattoo mentorship call from 7:30 till 8:30. After 8:30 is like family time. Sundays, we...
Like for the whole day?
For the whole day.
Okay.
I try to have family day, but still, stuff going on. Sunday mornings, 5:30, we have a group workout through Zoom, and then a personal development call for the coaching clients. So, we do burpees for like half an hour or something like that, and then we go through like personal development stuff, and then family time. So I try to keep those 2 days to just family time, but that's hard to do too.
Do you ever like relax or chill?
People ask like, what do you do outside of that? And I'm like, I do all the things that I love. So I mean, like,
Totally.
I get to feed my energy sources through all of those things. So through the meditating, through the art, through the working out, through the family time, through tattooing. Like, I love all those things. Like, I don't need to like escape from any of those things. And all the projects that I'm doing tattoo wise, they're all fun. Workouts, I'm doing them, with one of the artists that I'm working with, or through the Zoom call. So like, it's all fun things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you work like Monday through Friday?
Well, work's one question. I tattoo Tuesday through Friday.
Okay.
But, work's all different kinds of things.
Yeah. So when you're at the studio all day Monday, what are you doing? Are you helping artists? And
Yeah. So once a month we'll have what we call like a Monday gathering, which is like a meeting day, and we all kind of like touch base on like how they're doing for the month, what they need help or support with, what are some updates with the business things. Some Mondays it's at home with my wife, working on, she helps me on the business end of things, so we're touching base on that. And then sometimes it's just helping the other artists design, or I'm just, working on art myself.
yeah.
So you do a lot of, when you say mentoring people, like, what do you mentor for and to who?
So I have like a tattoo mentorship, So every other month in person, we do like a tattoo workshop. So artists come in and we tattoo synthetic skin together, go over different techniques. So that's one part of it. And then with that comes like 3 months of online tattoo mentorship. So then we just get on a Zoom call every Saturday morning, and we may go over like tattoo critiques. I may go over some tattoo composition stuff that I'm doing, or we'll talk about social media or business development. And then there's the coaching side, which is non-tattoo artists. And that's, personal development, fitness stuff, and just getting people into like the right headspace.
Yeah.
Wow.
So most of it's like a group setting and not like private.
There's a
mentorship.
lot of like private stuff too.
Okay.
Yeah. So some people want to do like one-on-ones, so we get on a call every 2 weeks or every week, depending on their level of intensity. And then some people just want to join for like the weekly group calls, which are just like every Saturdays and Sundays.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have a question too. So you were very into growth and doing, all the healthy things and waking up at 4:30. Like, you pretty much have like the ideal way of living that if everyone did that, I feel like it'd be hard to not be happy or feel good. Did you get to a point in your life where you're like, I need to make some drastic changes, or were you always just on this path?
I was always on the path to finding that, and throughout my life, I've always changed it. So like, no, I'm not always happy. No, it's not always right. But part of the routine is to help you get right. We were talking about it earlier. Like, some people work out, and that's their way of like releasing anger or negative energy. And I was like, well, when do you work out? Mornings or night? Because I think that would make sense at night. At the end of a long day, you just want to like dump all
Get
your
it out.
shit and just work out. But I work on the morning, and I wake up, and I'm pretty calm in the mornings, but I premeditate on all the ways I could like fuck up my day, whether it's like my temper or the way I respond to somebody or something not going right. And I just try to premeditate that and work out and get through that step so that when my daughter is frustrated or doesn't want to do something, I know how to respond to her accordingly. So my morning time is like my me time to get my shit in order so that the rest of the day is for everyone else. Because if I don't have that, and let's say you just wake up and you're late, you have to get to the shop, your family's a certain way, the shop's a certain way, then now you have to like scramble to just get your peace of mind in place. It's not a good day for me.
Yeah.
So like I've learned that I have to wake up earlier to just like set the tone for the day. But it's been through different things where, sometimes you're just an artist that just wants to do the work. You get married or you have kids or now you're opening a shop. Every time you go through a new development phase yourself, you have to change what your schedule, your routine is like. So before, waking up at 6 o'clock was early. And I think when we met, when I was doing that painting seminar, I was waking up at 6, and that was early so I could wake up and paint for an hour every day. My daughter wasn't in school yet, but now that she's in school, she has to be there by a certain time. Well, I have to shift that time frame up a little bit earlier. So I think it is important to have like a morning routine, but no, I'm not always happy. And it's not always like easy to wake up and do it either.
Sure.
So what happens when you're not feeling happy? Like when does that happen? When you feel like you're doing everything right during the day?
Yeah.
What kind of
Well,
shifts?
I always, the biggest thing I think is like my short temper when, let's say like my daughter doesn't want to like put her backpack on. I'm like, oh, come on, just hurry up. Just put the backpack on. And then she starts getting upset because like dad doesn't talk to me this way. But that's how I was talked to, So it's just like, just hurry up, like stop crying. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just mirroring what happened to me, So it's learning to not do that to her because we just realized like she's just trying to go through the motions and she's learning. So you have to model some good behavior for her as well. Or, it's my wife. She'll say something about me and I'll take offense to it, but really she didn't mean anything by it. That's just me not being able to kind of catch my response. So I'm just reacting. So, most of my day is spent trying to consciously respond to things instead of just reacting based on, past events, instincts, and,
Totally.
whatever
And
it is.
I can see how the morning meditation and doing a lot of that through fitness would like help with a lot of that when you're kind of not planning for that stuff to happen, but getting in that headspace of being ready to like deal with those daily frustrations and everything like that. Yeah, the word that comes to mind when I think about you is discipline, because and I feel like it's like going around on social media, but like
Yeah.
motivation and like discipline are like very different things.
Yeah.
Do you have mornings where you're like, dude, I do not want to get up at 4:30 this morning?
Yeah, this morning I didn't want to. You know, like,
Yeah.
motivation is like fleeting. You know, you'll watch a video, you go, I'm motivated. You know, discipline is like, will you still do it anyway?
Yeah.
And I'm not always like disciplined. You know, I'm actually like, it's every year the discipline gets better. You know, and I don't think you actually really get there, but you know, you get to a point where as you solidify who you are, what you need to do, then now you're acting out of a place of like purpose. So like purposely, I have to wake up early so I can keep myself in check, so I can spend some time with my art, so I can spend some time with my health. Because I know like if I don't do like meditating, art, and fitness, those three things are like a core to who I am. If I miss them, and I've spent periods of time where I was like, I don't need to meditate. You know, I can just like be mindful while I'm driving, and that counts. Or I can, you know, skip doing art because I'm tattooing. Or I don't need to work out because I'm fit enough. But if I miss one of those things over a period of time, I feel like I'm lacking. So just knowing myself, those are the three things that I need. And not everyone needs those things in particular. Everyone's wired differently, but you just have to know yourself. And it's like, what are the things that I need to be successful, to be happy, to be able to be a productive, good human being throughout the day? Those are just the things that I need.
And I feel like another big part of it too is, especially like you own a shop, you're doing mentorship calls, so you're like in a constant, and you know, you have a family, so you're like in a constant state of like being a leader and having these other people like depend on you and look up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like, especially like if that's your like daily routine, like you really need to make sure that you're taken care of and that you're in the headspace, the physical space to like be able to like present that to other people and like coach them through
Yeah.
life, you know?
Yeah, I believe my purpose is to be in service to people. So like from 4:30 till 7, that's my me time. After that is I'm here for everyone else, you know. So I serve my kids, I serve my wife, I serve the artists I work with, I serve the clients, I serve everyone else. You know, even you guys coming here, it's like, you know, how can I be of service? You know, I'm always thinking of that. And if you're not at your best, like you can't help anyone. You know, like the idea is you're pouring from an empty cup. So my
Totally.
cup's full by 7, and then by the time I've got my stuff done, it's like I feel productive, I feel useful. How else
Yeah.
can I like now pass that energy on to other people?
Totally. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
So I just want to make it clear you were always finding out how to be this. You were always kind of this way. There wasn't a time where you felt like you didn't have a morning routine. You were struggling with something. You're like, I need to make a change. You were just like, you've always just been motivated.
I've always been motivated to do better, but I didn't always have a morning routine. And then there was times where I had a morning routine, and there's times where I just dumped it. Even this past winter. I worked out. I had this big physique change. I worked out so hard. I was sore all the time. And I was like, I'm good. And I was struggling with, again, my biggest thing right now, raising a 5-year-old who can respond back and mirror back her emotions. We talk a lot. How I communicate with her and how I raise her is so important. And I found myself just getting short because I would try to put her to bed, and I have like a schedule that I want to adhere to. So I want to make sure I get the optimal amount of sleep so I can wake up and do my thing. So it's like, okay, hurry up, just one more book. You know, and it's like, you're being an asshole right now. Like,
Yeah.
just read the book with her. And then there was a time where it's like, you know what? This workout thing, this art thing, this meditating thing, it's not worth it if it's going to cause me to respond this way to my daughter. So I dumped it from November till about like early February. And for a person that's really disciplined, like just to completely lose it. But I had my reasoning, my purpose. Again, it's to find
Totally,
the best
totally,
version of
yeah.
me. So I dumped it. I still did some workouts. Still did some art. I did some meditating, but I wanted to make sure that I was ideal parent for my daughter. But I found out that wasn't it. You know, like I could have anything come up and like I would still be short. So it's like, okay, it's not the scheduling. It's not the whatever the routine is. It's like you just need to set all your stuff aside and learn how to be present with her, you know, during this, you know, whatever the activity is. And it's hard, especially as like, you know, an ambitious person. You want to like do so many things. Where I was like, let me not do all these things and just try to be one-dimensional here. But again, I feel like I'm lacking in those areas. So, you know, yeah, it's just a constant search to just be better, and what that means and what that looks like. Unfortunately, it varies. You know, it's not like this clear-cut formula.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to also talk about the meditating side, because even, especially tattooers, just anybody in general, it, fitness, that's a very popular thing.
Mm-hmm.
Fitness, diet. It, it would be great if more people meditated. And I know that a lot of people are like, "Ugh, I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I don't know how." Do you have any tips on how to get into meditating and why you think it's so important?
Yeah. Everyone's got a different perception of what meditation is. So some people are like, well, I just need to clear my mind, or I just want to be blank, or I want to be calm. For me, meditation is like self-awareness, self-observation. So when I sit for 10 minutes, the idea is to sit there and to be still and to be calm, but where the meditation has its power is like when I can catch myself not being able to sit still. I'm thinking about work, I'm thinking about, art or whatever the thing is, or I can't sit still. I'm scratching and I'm nervous or whatever. It's like, where does that come from? Why am I nervous? Why can't I sit still? Where am I agitated? Where am I bothered? Or I'm sitting really calm. What has been going right? So it doesn't take a long time. I used to meditate for like half an hour, 45 minutes twice a day. So like 2014, I was a monk, and I would just, learned how to meditate, the practices there. And I took it home, and twice a day I was meditating for a long period of time. And in the beginning, it's like, you can clear your mind and you work through all those things, but I don't need to sit there for that long anymore. I do want to pursue other things, but let me catch my current state of being. And I think that's the tip for everyone that wants to start practicing, which is it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be still. You're going to have all these things that comes up, but that is the meditation in action.
And isn't the point also not judging yourself? So when you say like, yeah, I think about it. Why am I this way?
Mm-hmm.
You're just pointing it out. You're not like, fuck, I can't sit still, and it's not judging yourself, right?
Yep. It's the observation of it. And if you're judging yourself, observe that you're judging yourself.
Yeah.
And that's something that you may want to work on too.
Yeah.
Which
totally.
is like, where does that come from? I know where it comes from when I judge myself. It's my parents, just my dad being a strict disciplinarian. They're always pushing me to do harder and to be better. And whenever I catch myself doing that and not giving myself the credit, it's like, okay, I know where that comes from. So you don't have to repeat the same things. As I was growing up, I can be kinder to myself and still be successful and still keep pushing.
Yeah, totally.
We brushed over that you were a monk too. That's
yeah, you were a literal monk?
Yeah. So 3 times. In Southeast Asian culture, when a family member passes away, the males and some of the females, you go to the temple and you can become a monk. And it's to, meditate on their life, on death, and just, have some time to reflect. So when my father passed away in 2004, I went for like 4 days. And it was just because I had to when I was 16. It's just out of like, what tradition does. The following year, I did it again when I went to Cambodia because I had to do it in my family's native land and to kind of celebrate over that. 2014, I did it because I wanted to. And when I told my mom I wanted to do it, there was a bit of skepticism of like, what did you do? Why do you want to go be a monk? Because it's almost like you're trying to ask for forgiveness or you're trying to release something. Sure. And it was like, no, I'm just curious. Like I was having almost an existential crisis of like, I was working 6-7 days a week. I was living in Las Vegas in this big house with other artists and employees that worked there that couldn't pay rent. And I was just struggling to like make money, and I wasn't happy with the work that I was doing. And I was just like, what's the point of life? Like, what happens if we die? What's karma? What's reincarnation? Why do we light incense? Why do we pray? What is all these things? So I decided to go be a monk for 9 days to go ask all these questions. And I stayed with this monk, and I was just the skeptical student of just asking him every typical question of like, why do all the Buddhists look different? Why is there a snake around him? And what happens when we die? And all these things. And I left by the end of that. And actually, before I left, day 7, I was left with my own dilemma of like, do I stay here and be a monk forever, or do I leave and become the best tattoo artist and marry my girlfriend, who's now my wife? And I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do much good here, so let me leave. And I continued to pursue tattooing. I married my wife. We've been together for 8 years at the time. and just kind of took off from there. And then from there, just applying some of the practices that I've learned with meditation, and, into everyday life.
Yeah. Wow. What an experience,
That's
dude.
like a summary. Yeah.
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 Dang. That's
what
crazy.
was the biggest thing you took away from that you brought back with you?
Everything's impermanent, so nothing lasts. So you don't need to get so caught up and worked up that, things aren't going to be a certain way. And there's a certain freeing aspect of that. But also, I feel like we just have a duty to just be good, and to do good. And what that means, that's evolved over time. It wasn't just about me anymore. We're all interconnected. So what you do with the people you're surrounded with has an impact. And again, I didn't really understand that at the time, but as I began to meditate on that and just kind of live with it, I was like, I'm here to be of service. How can I help everyone in any way possible?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Not to stray too much from that, because you just mentioned a lot of stuff from your past that I'm like, dude, I want to hear your whole story. But I feel like one thing as a business owner, like one of the biggest things that I've learned is that I feel like a lot of people get into it because you're like, oh, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to work for myself. Mm-hmm. And that's true in a sense that you don't have anybody telling you what to do. Mm-hmm. But you've got to be you're working for everybody else around you. Yeah. You're working for your artists and for your family. Right. So like and you have to be a disciplined person too.
Yeah.
But part of that is that's on you. You can't just have a day where you're like, well, I'm going to blow off my mentorship calls or looking at the finances or whatever it is. Cause it's like, no, like people are like, they're like relying on you to serve them, to help them.
Yeah. So you have to be of service to them. They're there to be with you, to learn from you, to work with you. You're there you made a really good comment at the Winter Symposium. You're like, you have to earn your commission. And I was like, absolutely. Totally. You can't just be there to just own a shop and collect and just like be gone. Like you have to actually be there and be of service to them. And when I open a shop, the artists that work with me, and the artists that work with you, they want to like learn more and observe and get better. So you owe it to them to just continue to like help them fine tune and, business, personal development, creative process, all those things.
And also, why would people listen to somebody give them advice who isn't implementing it themselves?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to tell somebody like how to be a good leader, how to be a draw a certain way, be a certain person, and you're not doing that, then it's empty.
Yeah, you got to walk the walk,
There's a line that I love. Your weakness is their way out. So I've gone through my waves of drawing and painting, through fitness too. And when I'm in it, I want everyone to do what I'm doing. Like, you got to paint too, you got to draw too. But when you don't do those things and they don't do it, and you know that that's going to help them, make them better to maybe get to where you're at, and you may say like, well, I don't need to because I've done it before. Well, then they're not going to be motivated to do it. So your weakness is their way out. I was like, you know what? People say they don't have time to work out or to draw, to do all these things. I was like, bullshit. Like, you don't have all the things I have going on. But, if I do all these things and I've got all these things going on, then they can see that there's no way out for you. Like, you have to do it.
There's no excuse. It's
so
like,
as I begin to like
do it.
nail down my routine, magically everyone else starts to draw, work out, and do all these things too. And it just shows them the example of like, damn, how can I fall if that guy's not falling?
Yeah,
you know. So you have to be the leader by example. You have to walk the walk of just doing all the things that is hard for you that you're supposed to do. And if you give yourself a pass, then everyone else is going to give themselves a pass too. No one's going to, especially the people who work with you, no one's going to work as hard as you. It's not their business.
Right.
But they're going to do what they feel is beneficial to them. But if you say it's going to be beneficial to them, show them. And every time I do all the things I'm supposed to do, I get better at all those things too.
Yeah. That's one thing that's tough too, is like sometimes, when I have issues with people, and it's not very often, we've got a great team, but when somebody acts or behaves a certain way, I'm like, oh, like if it was me, I would do it like this. And you've got to remember that not everybody's you, but somebody told me this recently, and I forget who it was, but it was another great line. They were like, if the people that work for you can show up like 80%, like that's because nobody's going to be like 100%. Like even you, like one of the most disciplined people I know, You know, you still have days, and it could be an issue of like you're reallocating your time or whatever it is, but like nobody's going to be like 100%. So if you can get the people around you to have that benchmark of like 80%, I feel like that's pretty good right there.
Yeah, and as you build up a group of people who are like at 80%, then now that becomes normal.
Totally.
And naturally, we'll find people that are like, well, I'm gonna hit 85, I'm gonna hit 90, you know? So like, yeah, it's to elevate everyone together at the same time, but you have to, it all starts with you, you know, it starts with the leader. And if you want your reality to be a certain way, like you have to start to mold it from within, and then naturally it starts to overflow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I love that leading by example, just that whole concept. I think it's so important.
Easy to
Absolutely.
say, you know, like you have to, it takes work to implement.
Yeah. And going back to the being of service thing, it's like not only are you like doing these things for people, but like you're setting the example, you're setting the tone.
Right.
And I feel like that's something else that a lot of studio owners like struggle with is they're like, oh, you know, these people are this way, you know, these people behave this way, you know, these people in my shop are doing this. And it's like, okay, but how are you behaving? Because whoever's at the top, like you set the culture for everybody else. And I feel like when it comes to like hard work and everything like that, like I never want anybody to feel like I'm not working as hard as them or you know, or not harder than them, you know. I feel like that's super important.
Yeah, there was a time when I was tattooing only 2 days a week because I wanted to spend the other 2 days working on art and really making my designs like there. And everyone else was at a point where it's like, well, I just want to tattoo, you know, 4 or 5 days a week. But to them, like, they're working more. My work's just a little bit different. And I was like, you know what? Like, I need to tattoo more. Because there's a point where, like, it was kind of counterintuitive. I was drawing to get better at tattooing, but I wasn't producing enough tattoos. So I was like, you know what? I just need to get more efficient with my design time. And again, it's reallocating all the time, like my time, my energy, because we're all limited to 100% energy, 24 hours. It's like, how do you want to use it? And, you know, we mentioned on the topic of, you know, earlier of, you know, working out is necessary. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, no, because the people who forego everything else, their fitness, their families, and they're just all in on the art, amazing artists. But how long can they do that for? Is it sustainable? Are there going to be any regrets or any downsides to their overall life? That's subjective to them.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who are like, art and tattooing is just a job, you know. So then they can do all these other things. So you have to really know what like your core beliefs and your values are, and if you can dial into that, especially as a business owner, then, you know, it's going to help set the tone for everyone else that's there. And yeah, it's all a reflection of who you are as a person. So if there's somebody that's falling short, well, you know, you demand, you know, something of them to be a certain way, then that reflects on you as a leader, as a trainer, to be able to get them to, you know, perform at the level that you may think, you know, you need them to be.
Totally.
And it goes into what I say of only take advice from people who have what you're wanting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And then one other thing I love to live by is like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
I remember like when I was like in high school, I had this private lesson. I was like in band at the time. I was like doing music, and I had this private lesson teacher who's now like a good friend of mine. He ended up like being my full-time teacher later, and I was like doing this piece that I didn't practice for, and I was like, oh, well, I had a lot of homework or whatever like that. So I was like, you know, not doing good. And he was like, yeah, but he's like, it's kind of counterintuitive because if you get better at this one thing, like everything else is going to get better too. So like if you get better at, you know, this music, then also like you're going to be better in math and whatever it is. And at the time I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But I started putting that into practice, and I realized that actually there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. I can see that when I watch a tattooer set up for tattoo, and I see how they arrange their tray, if it's like in a way that makes sense, or if they have like trash and cartridge things still on there and things are in a certain way, and it's like none of that makes sense. And then you can see how it trickles into the rest of their life. And you know, they just need a little bit more organization or structure if they want to be better in those areas. Or it's the same thing like You go to a restaurant and, if you look at their restrooms and the restrooms are not that clean, you can imagine what the kitchen is going to look like.
Totally.
So all those things matter. The attention to detail is there. It has to be there.
Or something as little as like, do you make your bed in the mornings?
You make your bed in the morning, yeah.
Like it's a really simple act. Just fold up the covers. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's something that I notice about myself, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I like using the car example. Like you come and you look and people have like trash all over in their cars, and it's like, that's a reflection of your brain, of your mind, and I know like when I'm a bit off, I just have to look at my art studio and like things are just not where they need to be.
Yeah.
I may look at my backyard and there's a pile of leaves that I have to like scoop up and throw away, and it's like, okay, dust and trash or things are just being reorganized throughout my house, like that's just a reflection of where I'm at. So everyone just needs to quickly open a drawer. You guys have got the drawer in the house where you look and you go, oh fuck, like there's a part of my brain that's decompartmentalized.
Yeah.
I got to take inventory and organize it.
So here's a real question. We're going to get deep here.
Yeah.
Be honest. Is your closet clean?
My closet's clean. Yeah. We
That's
sometimes
impressive.
have these baskets of laundry that's like needs to be put away, but it's clean.
Yeah.
My wardrobe's pretty simple. Like I've got a bunch of these shirts in different colors. I've got a couple of these pants in different colors. Then I've got my workout gear.
Yeah.
And then I've got a section of my closet that's like nice occasions for things like that. But it's pretty simple in there.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Ours isn't. That's where I just throw stuff in there.
Yeah.
But I do. I need to clean it up.
Yeah.
But it is a reflection too, like as we were saying, like right now for the first time, I think since I was a teenager, I have a clothes pile. And I know it's because I've been feeling really burnt out lately. I haven't been wanting to like put things up, and like that's something that I didn't want to have again, because I remember just being a teenager and not really caring about my room and not feeling good in it. But yeah, I have a clothes pile now, but that is a reflection of how I'm feeling lately, and just little things like that. So it really is true what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
Hear me out for a second here, but I was just thinking about this. So like when it comes to like having a clean room, having a clean closet, I remember like when I was in high school, like my dad would come up and he'd be like, oh, clean your room. I'd have like fucking like clothes all over the place, and I'd be pissed off that I'd have to clean it. But then I remember having this realization. I was like, oh, if I just put my dirty clothes in the hamper instead of throwing them on the floor, I never have to clean my room because I'm just keeping it clean. I feel like you can kind of like apply that to life. Like if you're just constantly being disciplined and doing, or even showing up like a certain extent, 80%, 90%, you never have to have that realization of like, dude, I'm fucking up. I've got to change everything. I've got to totally fix everything.
Yeah, you're just changing the mindset and the habit around it. So it's like, if I just put it in the pile, like I'm going to be good, And it's like, if I just woke up and went straight to the bathroom instead of being on my bed on my phone, like I'd be that much more productive.
Yeah.
So it's just changing it. I was never growing up, like I had socks under my bed. I had clothes on the floor. My mom would always give me a hard time with that. But then like I changed, I progressed over time. There's still times I come home from work and like I'll just have the socks and I just kind of toss it through the corner. And only way I started to really pay attention was when my daughter started to do the same thing. It's like, why are your socks over there? She's like, what? Your socks are there too. And I'm like, fuck. I was like, all right. So then now it's just like, here we go. I have to just be really mindful of like picking up my socks and put it there. And then I have to be like, you got to put your socks away. And she'll see me doing it too. So when we're on top of our shit, everyone else is going to follow and mirror and do the same thing.
I feel like, dude, I mean, we don't have kids, but I feel like having kids is like the ultimate, like, forces you to like self-reflect. Yeah.
They're going to be a combination of you two. So like there'll be something that she'll say or do and it's like, that's you.
Yeah.
Like, that's me.
And the other thing too is like you're talking about, oh, I'm this way because my parents are this way. So now it's on you. Like that's part of the equation too, is like you've got to be a certain way with her so she's a certain way with her kids,
100%.
Yeah. So okay, so now I'm interested in your childhood.
Okay.
And all that stuff and your upbringing. So maybe you can give us like the condensed version of like where you're from, who you grew up with.
I grew up in Brooklyn. My mom, my dad, and then I have an older sister and a younger sister. I always knew my older sister was a half. So my parents both had divorces, moved to New York, and I had another half sister, somewhere else. But that's how we grew up. My dad was an entrepreneur growing up, owned different businesses, and eventually just ended up working, Monday through Friday jobs. And I say like failed entrepreneur, but he tried. My mom did the same thing, but my dad was a strict disciplinarian, was a professor at some point, and in third grade there was a teacher that made parents check their homeworks and sign it at the bottom. My dad thought that was an amazing idea, so every day since then he would check all of our homeworks and sign it. I grew up having a giant whiteout board where we had to leave our homework at night because by the time we get home, my parents were at work till midnight. And I'd wake up and every morning there'd be a board full of notes of like what was wrong with my homework or why didn't I put my homework out. And the goal was to like quickly get your homework and get out before he woke up. And you know, sometimes he'd lecture you on it. Sometimes he'd beat you with a hanger about it, you know, and it's just one of those things of like he just wanted you to get your shit together, you know, like so he really tried hard to get me to be a good student, to be a good kid, but he was just raising me in the best way that he knew how.
Yeah.
That's what I learned over time. And then I reflect, I'm like, damn, how did my dad grow up? You
Yeah,
know, like
seriously,
what made him want to do
yeah.
that?
And so you're Cambodian?
Yeah.
So are
Cambodian
both your
Chinese.
parents?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then my father, when I was 16, was involved in a homicide robbery. So we lived in Brooklyn at the time. This was like 3 p.m. He went to get cash from the bank the week after my 16th birthday to get me a computer. And we're playing in the courtyard of our building handball, and he doesn't come home for a while, but the ball rolls into the alley that leads to the street. That's typically where, you know, we come home, it's a locked gate, and I found somebody laying on the floor. Homeless people sometimes sleep there, people piss there. And I went to go check it out with my mom and my cousin. It's my dad. He's laying on the floor with his head split open. His wallet's ripped out, and bring him to the hospital. He's in ICU in a coma for 4 days, and I watch him flatline. From that time, then it's just like, you know, you lose your father figure. You don't know how to cope or to deal. Everyone else is kind of falling apart. But through that event, I found out that my dad had 3 other kids from his previous marriage. Didn't know they existed. Apparently my mom knew when she got on the phone with them the first time. But one of them is my brother, Robert, who taught me how to tattoo. So through that event, I met my brother, you know, many years later, learned how to tattoo. But yeah, that's the condensed version of my childhood growing up.
Oh my God.
My dad tried hard, and now I'm in the phase of like, damn, I sympathize with him, I understand him, but there's things I love about him and things I don't want to be like.
Yeah, totally,
when I'm a parent.
totally. Dang.
Yeah.
Man, that's traumatic, dude. I'm so sorry that happened. I'm sure it's made you who you are, but
Yeah, I've told that story several times. Sometimes I think of like, am I leaving out any pieces of that? Because I've told it so many times. But I blame myself a lot for that because I asked him to get me a computer. Then he went out. But I learned it wasn't my fault, you know, over time. But just to see him like work so hard, and he always tried to instill that in me. Like that's what, you know, gave me the same work ethic that I have today.
yeah, I was gonna say when you're talking about how he would work all fucking day, then come home and then check your homework.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much he slept, but it sounds similar to your day as far as like the time that you're putting into everything.
Same
so
thing.
I can definitely see where you get a lot of that.
Yeah. One more thing. When he would drop us off in school, in elementary school, and it would be like a 20-minute drive. He would drill us on like Mandarin. So like we'd have a notebook in the back of the car. He'd try to teach us Mandarin. We'd have to write it down, and there'd be times where like I'd pretend to sleep or I didn't hear him, and you know, like I just didn't want to be a good student, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's always tried to just get us to like be better. And one of the things I keep hearing my mom, my dad say is like, try harder, like don't be like that person, like you need to be better. And now like that's just like what's in my head all the time. Like I gotta do better, I gotta be better, and it's like, you know, it comes from a place of love and care. But I find myself doing that with my daughter too, and I'm like, are we fucking up our kids, or is this a good thing? And it's like, you know, some self-motivation and self-drive is good, you know, to just not let them fall apart completely.
Well, where's the line when you hear that voice in your head? Is it motivating to you, or is it like daunting to you?
It's a little bit of both, you know, but it's I used to say like, and I over the years, I've done a lot of like self-help, self-development over the past maybe 5 years or so. I had like 7 voices in my head, and I could just kind of pinpoint them to like different people or different things. And then over time I realized I just had 3. I had a really like negative one that was always just kind of like beating me down, not motivating me. Then there was one that was like kind of like a timid voice of like, you know, I'm trying, I'm doing my best. And then there's another voice that's like, doesn't even say anything, but it's just wise, and it's like, you're doing the right thing. You know, so I kind of juggle and balance between those three voices in my head of like, you're not doing good enough. I'm trying. And it's like, no, you're good.
Yeah.
Right where you're at, because you're always going to do your best.
So did you have those realizations through like meditation? Because that's a high level of self-awareness and like self-reflection. Like, how did you?
Or did you ever go to therapy?
No, I never did therapy. So a lot of meditation, a lot of talking with my wife. My wife's really good. She was the first person. So we got together, well, 2 different times. 16, actually 15, freshman year, summer. She broke with me after a month and a half because I was too boring. Then I spent the next couple years like trying to be unboring. And then after high school, we got back together. But I used to be really angry. I used to like throw my phones, you know, and I used to just get pissed off all the time. And she was the first person who'd be like, why are you so angry? Why are you mad? I'm like, what do you mean why? Like, you know, whatever. She goes, well, how do you feel now that you're throwing your phone? And I was like, well, I don't know. She's like, you know, you got to buy a new one, right? I was like, yeah. Well, fuck. I got to buy a new one now. But I've just seen my parents break TVs, camcorders, and just things. So I was just mirroring back what I knew on how to deal with my emotions. But she was the first person to get me to question my thoughts, my emotions, my actions.
Yeah.
She's been very patient with me. Without her, I wouldn't be this way today, I think.
Wow.
But through a lot of conversation with my wife, meditation, through journaling, and then 2020, I started getting to like psychedelics. So like mushrooms, heavy, MDMA, ketamine, and using it for self-exploration, for self-therapy, for healing, you know, in that phase. And it was a big time for me to just go introspective, you know, and there was a point where I was doing like 3 to 5 grams of mushroom every day, you know, to just like process and work through my stuff. Journal, working out was big, and just like, why do I feel, act, and live this way, and what do I want to change?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until March of last year where I was like, I'm done. I understand myself through this process. I now have to do the work sober and like now apply everything that I've learned.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So first of all, you and Deanna actually have something in common, that you've both been broken up with for being too boring.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Was that with
I
you?
was like, that sounds familiar too.
Not me. How old were you? Like, it was like elementary school, right?
For being too boring, that was 9th grade.
9th grade. Oh, yeah, me
Same
too.
age.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, both are boring, yep.
And then you're like, fuck it, I'm going to become a tattoo artist. Not
not
that
yet.
it was right then, but yeah. Now you're cool as fuck. You know, but dang, that's
so
crazy.
funny.
So, and how old are you now?
35.
Okay, so you started this journey of self-reflection. What would you say? We were like 20?
30? Well, no.
Well, with
I
the
mean,
psychedelics and stuff, you said,
psychedelics was 2020. So what is that?
oh, I thought you were
What
saying
is
you
it?
were 20.
No,
Okay,
no,
gotcha.
2020. But no, since my dad died 16, then there was always like, I think that's the first time I really thought about, that's the first person I seen pass.
Yeah.
You know, just thinking about life and death and like, what am I going to do? And, you know, who do I want to be? And then just losing your father figure, like he was just kind of like, whatever remnants, memories that I did have of him, they were pretty fragmented. That was just like embedded in me that I had to like be this certain type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, so when did tattooing come into the equation? So, because you said Robert taught you how to tattoo, but you didn't know he existed until you were 16.
So I knew of him when I was 16. So the detective who's working on the homicide robbery case, he's like, hey, so we found out that your dad has 3 other kids. One went to prison for 7 years for, you know, gang-related activity. You know, he's out now. He's good. He's in North Carolina. He's tattooing. You have another sister and brother in California.
And that was Robert.
Yeah. Do you want to talk to him? I was like, yeah, I want to talk to him. So we get on the phone for the first time, and I'm talking to my brother. And I just remember just, like, hearing his voice and just kind of connecting with him for a little bit. And then he asked about my mom. I was like, you want to talk to my mom? Yeah. And it sounded like they knew each other. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how do you guys know each other? Mom, you knew about this?
Yeah.
And then when my brother drove from North Carolina to New York for the first time to meet us, it was like seeing a ghost of my dad, because my dad was always like a little bald, but just clean haircut, clean shaved, you know, dressed nice, buttoned shirts, you know, iron pants. My brother comes in, you know, T-shirts, Dickies, kind of long hair, beard, and just to see the look in my brother's eyes was the same as my dad's, but just to see, you know, the hair and
Yeah.
the beard, it looks like my dad like kind of aged. But we connected, and I knew that he was doing like portraits, tattoos that were really good. I wasn't too much into tattooing.
And so this was like almost
2000
20 years ago.
2004.
Okay.
Yeah, he was already like in magazines, winning awards, and just doing amazing realism work.
Yeah, because he's like an OG.
Yeah, he's
of
been
realism.
tattooing since I was 1, so he'll be tattooing 35 years.
That's
this year.
crazy.
Wow.
So he learned while he was in prison, and between 16 to 22, there was no real interest to do tattoos. I got my first tattoo at 16. I saw him with PHO across his stomach, and I was like, damn, I never saw anyone who represented that hard. I want to do that too. Can you put my last name on my back? So Old English PHO across my back. We did that.
And so he did it.
Yeah,
Cool.
when I was 16 in his kitchen, and didn't get any tattoos since then. I've always been into art. Didn't know what to do with it. My family was always like, be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, you know, just typical immigrant stuff. My sister is an engineer, mechanical, electrical, nuclear degrees, like, you know,
Wow.
does really well.
Wow.
And I went to school for engineering also, but I had no idea what engineers did. So after the 2 years of core classes, I finally took an engineering course, and I felt like it was another language, so I dropped out, went for graphic design, and that's when art started to come back. I was in New York at BMCC, a community college, and the art professors from Parsons and SVA would teach there part-time. So I was doing life drawing, painting, everything there, and they were like, you have to do something with this. And I didn't know what to do with it. I was working retail at the time, and I was at the handball park with, you know, some friends, and they were showing off tattoos that they did in each other. It was still like just fresh, and it didn't look that good. And I asked my cousin who was there, I was like, would you let me tattoo you? And he was like, only if you got good. And I was like, only if I get good.
I got
So
to
I was
tattoo
like-
you to get good.
I messaged my brother. I said, hey, what advice would you have if I wanted to tattoo? And he's like, if you move to Las Vegas, I'll teach you. So this was March. What year was that? 2014? And I went to Las Vegas for a week because I've never really been in a tattoo shop. And I got to like see him in his element. Clients flying in, front panels, back panels, full sleeves, realism. And I was like, this is what tattooing is like? And he was gardening, he was building a koi pond, he was raising a family, and you know, that's all the things that he was going to teach me. So I'm going to teach you gardening, we're going to raise koi together. And I was like, this is the life of an artist? Like, this
Yeah,
shit's
yeah.
awesome. And that week, bought a Mickey Sharp's machine, bought a power supply, and went back home to New York, and I tattooed for 3 months while I finished up school for the semester. Did like 40 tattoos between working overtime, going to school full time, and just like any little bit I wanted to get it done.
Wow.
And
Then
so
I-
this was before you moved out to Las Vegas?
Yeah, and then
So
that
you were
summer
just
moved to Las Vegas.
Tattooing people in your house. You're
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
I got some pretty good photos of like just, you know, I'm just tattooing on a workout bench. I had like a Bowflex adjustable thing, and
Yeah.
you know,
You're going to have to share those with us
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, that's when I like, all right, I'm doing art now. Like, and then now we draw on people every day for a living. You know, like it's just an awesome thing to do. So to just like remember that, and then I see people getting into it, I was like, you got to really love it, because you're gonna have your days where like you suck, or you're gonna overwork some stuff, or you're just not gonna be happy with it. As like, do you want to get better? Do you really want to do this?
Yeah.
You know, and I remember those days of just like, it's a couple of times just questioning like, you know, should I still be doing this? But like, you know, I love what I do.
And especially when you're tattooing people, it's permanent. You
Oh,
can't
yeah.
just tear up the piece of paper or paint over like whatever you fucked up, you know?
That was the biggest thing with tattooing, was that when I would do drawings and you didn't like it, you can kind of scrap it. You have to finish
Yeah, right.
everything now. Like whatever it's at, like you have to finish, and you got to make it good.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so you tattooed out of your house for a few
2
months,
months, yeah, 2-3 months, yeah.
and then moved to Vegas. And you said this was 2014. So like when did being a monk?
2011.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, 2011.
Gotcha.
Sorry, 2011. I started tattooing.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like that's like really like when the tattoo industry like started to like blow up, because that's like when Instagram was coming into the
Instagram was
equation.
2012.
Yeah.
That came out.
Okay, so almost then. Yeah.
I was still using Facebook at the time. I still have it, but I don't really use it. And then Instagram came out, and that's when like we could just share our work. Before that, I was handing out physical business cards. Like I would get dropped off at a mall, So my brother kicked me out of the shop because I didn't have any clients. And I would just watch him tattoo. He was like, you can't get good just by watching. Go get clients. So I didn't have a car or anything, and they would just drop me off at a mall, in August, Vegas heat, and I would just like have 1,000 business cards in my backpack. And I would see you go, hey, can I leave this with you? Hey, my name's Andy. Hey, and just constantly handing out cards. Every car I would see, I put a business card on there. And just doing that, then I would walk to the next mall or get kicked out and go to the next place and just like learn how to talk to people and sell myself.
Wow.
Now you've got Instagram. You can just DM people. You can just make a post. Like, there's no reason for you to not be busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not fucking trying.
Yeah. Isn't that so wild? Especially you've got a pretty large following now.
Yeah.
It's like you can make one post and it'll reach whatever, 10, 50, 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Versus having to hand people.
Oh,
and those people are like interested in tattoos that are
Yeah.
seeing your stuff. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Versus like just random people at the mall. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a
Crazy.
world we live in.
I remember
dude.
it was like a $60 special. Restrictions apply, and people are like, "What's the restrictions?" I was like, "Whatever you want for 3 hours," and like it was just charged $60. I gave my 50% to the shop, and then I would just come home with like $30. But my apprenticeship was only 7 months. I had some savings, but no one taught me how to like be smart with my money. So like I ate out when everyone else ate out. I flew to Miami the first week to go to a convention and like spent all my money, got homesick. I didn't have clients. I sucked at it. And I was like, I remember having to tell my brother, like I sent him a text. I was in the house. I was like, hey, can I talk to you? And he didn't reply. And I'm like, fuck. Then he comes downstairs just casually. I was like, hey, you got my text? He was like, no. And he's just watching TV. And I was like, can we talk? Like, I want to go back to New York. Like, I'm homesick. I don't have any money. I'm not good. And he was like, hey, I get it, man. Like, you got to do what makes you happy. Like, what are you planning on doing? Still tattooing? I was like, yeah, I'm going to tattoo out of the house for a while. And, I just, like, I feel like I got friends out there and I can learn how to tattoo. But while I was out there, I had a friend who worked at a tattoo shop. It was a basement shop in Chinatown in Brooklyn. He was like, hey, we just had an artist that left. We have a bunch of walk-ins. Like, you want to come work? I just got back into retail for like 2 weeks, just hated my life. And I was like, if you give me the spot, I'll quit my job right now. And he's like, you got it. You can come in tomorrow. So I pick up the phone and I leave a voice message for the company. I was like, hey, so I'm calling for my 12 to 8 shift tomorrow. I'm not going to come in. Actually, I'm not going to come in at all.
Yeah.
Like, I got a new job. And I remember just bringing all my stuff over, and it was like dragons, koi fishes, phoenix, line work, shading, color, and like just all day, and just like built up the fundamentals again. So I stayed there for about a year and a half, and then 2014 or 2013 moved back to Las Vegas because my brother was getting ready to open his shop, and then that's where like I stayed until 2020, just working out of that place.
Yeah. So I guess by the time you got back to Vegas, you were a little bit better at tattooing.
A little bit better, yeah.
And so is that how you started to like get clients when
Yeah.
you were back over there?
Yep. So he was just in the middle of going from like an 800 square feet shop to like a 4,000 square feet shop. And at the time, like they needed like a walk-in artist at that new location. So, I was just there like taking anything and everything. And again, I had the walk-in experience. I knew how to do that versus before it was on like a deserted strip mall. There was no traffic coming in.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of like sustain myself and thrive during that.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And so when did you start to do like what you do now, which is like pretty much black and gray realism? Yeah. And so I guess Robert was doing that pretty much the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a major, I'd say that the major turning point. We had an artist, Fernie Andrade. He joined Skin Design in like 2014. And his black and gray is amazing. Like, he would just do them in one pass. It would be dark. It would heal up like buttery smooth. Everyone before then was doing like super soft, light black and gray, not a lot of blacks. And once we saw like how fast he was working, how dark and how saturated, we were all just like studying and learned how to like tattoo like that. And I was trying, I just didn't know how. And I was working on a drawing, and I remember he just walked by one day and he was like, what are you working on? I was like, oh, just this drawing. And he goes, cool. I was like, what do you think? He was like, it's good. I was like, no, like, can you break this down for me? Well, see here, like, this could be darker, this could be lighter. And he was talking about contrast and how to make things come forward, because I would always have everything kind of muted. So he was like, even though the photo's not darker there, make that darker. And even though this is not as light here, make that lighter. And once he described it and he pointed out on a drawing that I already did it, I was like, it was like a movie where the camera kind of zooms out on you, and I was like, whoa. And then after that, I did a portrait the next day. It's this portrait of a bagpipe player with a bagpipe in front of it and a bunch of little figures. A 25 mag the whole thing, and I was like, this is how you get it super smooth. This is how you get it dark. This is how you make it light. And I was playing with like these crazy tones, and that changed the way that I tattooed. It changed the way everyone tattooed at the shop. So now we were all shooting for one session, single pass, saturated, high contrast, and from there, like, the work started to evolve more and more.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I was always doing small, detailed, textured things, so I kind of blended the two together. So now my style works a mixture of both. I want to do large scale, super saturated, high contrast, but you look in there and there's going to be a lot of little details within there too.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you do. Your work is incredible, and for anybody watching, please go to Instagram, check out Andy Pho's work.
Yeah.
It is definitely high contrast, readable. You can see it from a mile away, which I think is one of the biggest things to what makes a good tattoo.
Yeah.
Is knowing what you're looking at.
Thank you.
That's a great story, because there are so many great things that you can take away from that. So the first thing is, we were talking about this before this morning, we were getting set up. You come from the background of like, it's like, dude, if all you got to do is ask. Like, and I feel like that's so powerful too. And it's tough because, like, when you're an artist, you have a lot of pride in what you do. Yeah. But like, if somebody can like pick apart your stuff, and they can do it in a respectful way, but that's when you get better. Yeah. And you've got to be comfortable with asking people that and getting that feedback.
And not just being like showing someone like, hey, look, because they're gonna be like, oh, cool. Yeah. It's saying, no, what do you think of this? What can I do better? Right. That is so, so important, because no one, I mean, I'm one in a million, but usually no one's going to come up and be like, you should be doing this instead, without you asking them.
Well, I've had a little bit of both. There's a few times where I remember, like, a very pivotal time. I did this rose tattoo. It wasn't good. I did my best. Mm-hmm. But my brother, first one was a lettering piece on someone's chest, and I tried to do some clouds. This is like month 4 in. And my brother's like, you can't do that to people. No more custom script. You got to pull your own font. And I was like, oh, I fucked up somebody. And then I did a rose, and I thought it was pretty good. He was like, you can't be doing that to people. Like, you can't mess up their skin. And I was like, oh, fuck. But I tried my best. And I remember, like, going home to my apartment and just, like, crying it out. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, I tried. Like, how do I get better? Like, tell me how. And then there's the other times where also, like, I would show my brother my work, and it's the same thing. It's like, oh, that's cool. I was like, no, like, tell me really, like, what you think. And he'd be like, let me see the reference. You see that? You see that? So you can't assume that someone's going to tell you what you need to know. Mm-hmm. And you just have to be able to ask. And
really ask.
When I show work, I don't want people to be like, oh, that's cool, or oh, that's nice. And I will get a lot of like, oh, that's pretty cool, that's nice. But even then, I tried to study their observations. So, like, when I would do tattoo conventions and other artists would come see my work, I'd watch the way they look up close or look up back, and they go, oh, I like the way you did that there. Like, what's this about? So whatever they're pointing out, I want to know what you caught, and I want to know what you didn't catch. Because I spent a lot of time on this, and I don't think you really, like, appreciated that, but you caught that. Yeah. So, like, I try to learn just through other people's observations. But I want to know, like, break it down. And one of the things I say, and what everyone else should have, is, like, I hate all my tattoos in the way that I want to find something about it that's good. I like my tattoos, but, like, is there something that I can find that I hate about it that I can improve on? And if you can't, I don't think there's a way for you to improve. You've got to find something to tweak and change. Doesn't mean you did a bad tattoo. You know, when I say that, like, I did a good tattoo. But there's that need to find constant improvements on, or else you plateau. Yeah.
Well, and the other part of that story that I love is your whole shop took this level up when you got somebody in there that was doing badass work. And I think one of the most important things that you can do in anything that you do, tattooing or whatever, is being around people that are going to push you in that way. And I feel like that's something that a lot of tattoo artists struggle with, is they get in their own bubble, or you'll see artists that, like, come up in a badass shop, they apprentice in a badass shop, and then they're like, okay, now I'm going to open a private studio, and they're just by themselves, and they don't have anybody to push from or push them or learn from. And so, but nowadays I think there's so many resources. You've got seminars, conventions, Instagram, because I'm sure if somebody hit you up and asked you a question, you would respond to them. You might direct them to a seminar or a workshop, but, like, you're going to give them that feedback. You're not going to just like say fuck you or like not respond. So I think that's so important, is to seek out those artists that you want to be like and that are going to push you in whatever way it is, whether it's guest spotting or conventions or whatever it is. Like, I think that's so important to growth.
Yeah, it's important to like get into new rooms. And again, I was saying earlier, like I love when you guys do the symposiums, because that allows artists to get into new rooms, to get new perspective. But even in this digital age, you don't have to physically be around people anymore. Like I have artists that like will send each other tattoos, and it's like, what do you think? Give me some feedback. And it's just asking some questions to just get to understand. So you can build that peer network through artists remotely. You can sign up for a mentor or coach, or you can go to like a seminar. And again, you know, you do one-on-ones, you do the symposium stuff. So that's a way for you to time collapse. It'll save you years of trial and error just by going to an artist that you admire and be like, can you give me some advice?
Yes.
And sometimes I think even just asking for advice isn't sufficient, because you need more time. So it's like when someone comes and spends a full day or 2 days with you, what is it? They watch you tattoo, and then they tattoo and you shadow them the second day? How does that work out?
It's, yeah, the first day they shadow me. Essentially, I go through my whole process I talk about. In the second day, we really collaborate on a tattoo together, like switch off a lot.
Yeah.
And I will be hovering over them every step of the way and be like, add a little bit more darkness right there. No, get shade this way a little bit, and just almost like micromanage a little bit until they get it. Which is, I think, the more important.
Yeah.
Most
So
important thing.
what would you say like makes someone a good student, a good learner? Like what, because
Great
you've had
question.
several people, like what makes, if you were to give some people advice, like what makes that, what are some good traits?
If I could jump in and answer this real quick, just from hearing her talk about it, like I feel like the biggest thing is just to actually do the shit that she's telling you to do. Because she'll give so many examples where people like ask for help on something, and then she'll tell them how to do it, and they're like, oh, well, I do it like this because of this. Yeah. And it's like, why are you asking? Yeah. Like, just do it. You know, sorry, I just wanted to jump in and.
No, you're good. The first thing that I thought of is, because I've mentored quite a few people now, there's one type of person where I'll say, oh, you know, you do this, and then you do this, and then they're like, and they kind of seem like bummed out, or they'll be like, oh, I tried that. And then like I'll tell them, but they're not receiving any of that information. They're like almost bummed out a little bit that they have to do the work. Like, you know.
Is that just a flawed mentality of coming into like a seminar day? Like,
I think that is a lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence.
And it's hard to not take it personally and not be frustrated, because I do get frustrated. I don't show it, but I feel it. I feel the frustration, but I know it's a lack of confidence. I know they don't believe in themselves, and they're just like, and they have excuses. They have excuses for everything too. And then I have the people that are like writing everything down. They get on buying the inks right away. They try it out again. If they tried it before, they'll try it again and then show me a picture, be like, what do I need to do better? It's those kind of people. And then the other ones that are just like, maybe if I just like sit and listen to you, maybe I'll get better just by sitting and just listening to what you have to say and seeing if what I'm doing already is right or not.
Yeah, it's almost like an approach of like they're not even trying to show up ready with an empty mind to like, I'm just going to completely learn something different that maybe even if it's something similar, if I just pay attention, I can try it out. But they just don't have that, where it might be like a defeatist mindset, where it's just like they hear something that doesn't go their way or is counter to their perception of like, well, this is what I may think Deanna's going to teach me. But then when you say something that's like maybe obvious or something that they have already done, they're just kind of, like you said, kind of defeated, and they just kind of shut down.
Right.
You know?
But the thing is, they may not have done it correctly, or they may have only tried it once, and then they're like, oh, well, I guess I can't do that. Yeah. And they don't want to practice. It's consistency. Yep. You're not going to get something right away. If I tell you my whole process on how I tattoo and you try it once, you're like, I'm not an expert, and you give up.
Yeah.
That's it takes a long time to figure something out. It
And
takes effort.
Yeah, and I still think nothing replaces like hard work because I was just saying like you have all the resources nowadays where you can take a seminar from your favorite artist. Like if Deanna's like your color idol, like guess what? You can go in person work with her, but like it's one thing to like take advantage of those resources and then like to really like take advantage of those resources where you're like this is going to change the way that I'm doing things. I'm going to put in the work to do it as good as I can, exactly the way she told me. And that's the difference, I think, between someone who just takes a seminar to be able to say like, oh, I tried it, I took a seminar versus like,
I sat there and listened.
Yeah, versus like, I'm going to use this to like affect my career trajectory because it really can. Yeah. A great example, she just did a seminar with, I can't remember if she was at the symposium or not, but Callie, she's an artist from New York. She does like a lot of glitter tattoos and she's a very versatile artist. But she did a painting tattoo with Deanna. The collab came out amazing. And now she's done like 5, 6 of them. And they're like, she's like crushing that technique. And she went home and she did those for free and discounted so she could like really like get it in her portfolio. And now she's like crushing them. And I think the other big benefit of doing the collabs and stuff like that, especially when, because your technique is a lot different than other people's and your approach to color is, like it might seem like counterintuitive to people. Like one thing that she always talks about in her seminars is like when you're doing color around nostrils, she's like, just put tangerine in there. And like to an artist that you say that to, you know, it's like, dang, that sounds scary. But like if you've got Deanna over your shoulder and then she's like, put that color in right there.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be like, okay, and then you're gonna do it and be like, oh, that actually looks good, you know? Yeah. But I think that's the benefit of like doing the collab or like doing the shadowing process is like you don't have room to be scared because like the artist is like, here, do it, you know?
And there's accountability for it too, because again, you just have to do the work versus if you watch a video on your own at home, whether you have the discipline to go out there and put it into practice, you know, it's setting that time aside to actually do the work.
Yeah.
I think a 2-day platform that you have is great for like observing, and the observing day should be sufficient. I think like you should be able to observe and take and run with it. The application is where it's gonna, you know, make it multiply. What was it like for you to have a couple of those, like again, those key moments for transitioning your work into like, I guess that question, and then what was your way of learning and observing, like on how to get better?
When because I'm always still trying to get better, like, but are you talking about like when I was an apprentice or like learning about this technique or?
I guess that you have different phases of it too, like the parts of you that were like major jumping points in your career.
Yeah, it was taking my tattoo, going up to someone whose work I really loved and saying, what would you do better? And for them to point out specifically the things I needed to do better. That was one of the biggest things for me, which is why it's something I suggest to people too, not just say, hey, like, what do you think of this? But say, what would you do better? And then they'll tell you, and then you go back to your tattoo with your client and add whatever they told you to do. That was the biggest thing for me. But yeah.
I feel like that's such a good strategy too. And to do this, you've got to be in a shop like with the people right there, because you can't just, because if you send a photo to somebody after, you can know what to do better next time. But like sometimes there's just little things that can completely change a tattoo. So I'm sure you're talking about Francisco Sanchez, who owns Dark Age, incredible black and gray artist. So when I was getting my sleeve work done, there was an apprentice there at the time who was also incredible. And he had to start at like 11 because he had to do all of his apprentice shit, and then he would tattoo me for like super cheap after. I got super lucky. But we would be tattooing and we'd go to like 2 a.m. and they're a late night shop over there, and be like, all right, I think we're done, but let's go show Frank. And then Frank would look at it and be like, all right, kill that tone in there, you know, darken these areas right here. And for me as a client, I'm like, I can't really tell a difference, but I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm so tired. I want to be done. But like those little things sometimes can make the biggest difference in the tattoo. Or I think another good example is like really early on, Monica, one of our artists, was doing more portraits on skin. She hadn't done too many of them. And she did this Lady Gaga piece, and she asked Deanna about the composition. And Deanna was like, just put a little bit of hair like on the other side, because she had like hair swooping down. And like sometimes it's just little changes like that that just like can totally change a tattoo and take it to that next level. And to do that, you've got to be willing to ask, and you've got to be willing to take people's advice. Because that's like I was saying, that's the other thing. If somebody gives you advice, like, you still have to take it, like, and not make excuses for like, oh, well, I think it's good like this, you know, because otherwise it's like, why ask? Yeah, you're just wasting both of your times, you know?
Yeah. And so it seems like you learn kind of the same way. You had one person tell you a little tip, and then.
Yeah, I love doing it that way. Another one that I love doing is, especially on Instagram, like, what stops your scrolling pattern? And again, you guys are big into social media. You guys do amazing there. But it's like, there's so many good tattoos now that, like, I actually don't like a lot of amazing tattoos out there because, like, we've normalized it. But when I stop at something, break it down, it's like, what do you love about it? And even the pieces that you love, what don't you like about it? And we can even go a little bit further, like the things that you scroll past. Why did you scroll past it? Is it just common imagery? Is the technique so-and-so? Like, why isn't something jumping out at you? You know, and I can do the same thing when I scroll through my photos. It's like, why are some of these pieces that I've done, like, really capturing my attention? And why are some just like, you know? So I also kind of like, I can like self-study and learn about my tastes, my style. And that's one of the things I learned about style is like, it's a combination of all the things that you like and you don't like. So if you can really break down what you like about someone else's tattoo compared to your own tattoo, then you can pull a bit of that and now you can modify your own. So let's say it's, you know, the way that someone always does a portrait and, you know, their hair is a certain way. Well, study the hell out of the way that they do that hair, and can you get a little bit of that into your work too?
Yeah. Yeah, and I do the same thing with social media. Like, when I see somebody like blowing up, getting millions of views, I'm like, okay, what did they do? Like, why did this video hit so hard? And then the other way, because now you've got like a bunch of these, because it used to be good enough to just post a good tattoo and get like a shit ton of likes on it, but it's not enough anymore. So like, now you're seeing artists too that are doing like phenomenal work, but like their stuff's not hitting. And so I do the opposite way too. I'm like, okay, like, if I was making this video, like, what could I have done better to capture people's attention in that way? So I think that's applicable to like everything, like not just tattoos, you know?
Yeah. I'm gonna show you some of my social posts, and I'm gonna ask you, what do you think about my posts?
You make great posts. I want to ask you the question too, because you also mentor. What do you think is an example of a great student compared to someone that needs a little work?
Application is a big one. I've mentored several people, and you can give them the advice, but the ability to follow through is going to be a clear separator. You know, again, it's like, you're paying for this time, so I'll tell it to you, but there's some people I haven't renewed mentorships for because it's like, you don't come to the call ready, you don't come to the call excited, you haven't really applied too much. And then there's some people who are just ready, they're just firing off questions, and you can see that they've applied things in their work, in their business, in their social media, that it's like, okay, you're clearly getting results. And then there's the people who just kind of doubt what you say, and it's like, well, why sign up in the first place? I think you have to be skeptical, or just more so you have to be willing to like ask questions. There are people who just want things fed to them, and I can give pointers on what works out, what doesn't for you, but you should always come ready with questions. And I don't think there's enough people that have that kind of ability to like question the people that they're learning from, or what works or what doesn't work. Like, they just show up and it's just blank. You know? So to me, it just shows like a mind that's not ready and not developed. So it's just coming ready with questions, I think, is an important one.
I feel like
Not that.
I feel like when you have students like that, and I've done like music teaching and stuff too, so I also approach it from the lens of that. But I feel like the best kind of students are the ones that push you as a teacher, because if you're constantly pushing them, you say, okay, you need to do this and do this and do this, versus they do all the shit you're telling them, and you're like, okay, well, like, what else can I help them with? Like, what's the next level?
Right. I guess that's how I feel with the people who ask the questions, because there's sometimes they're like, well, whenever I teach, I learn, because like the ones who ask good questions, I have to refine my thought process a little bit better so I can explain it. And then if they can catch it on quick, then it's like, great, like I've just learned something a little bit different. So each time that I teach, I get a little bit better at it. So yeah, when those people come with like questions, they're pushing me to like think a little bit more about the way that I tattoo or do something. And yeah, then it's just like, all right, like, how can I continue to elevate what I'm doing through that?
And I feel like too, when you have to verbalize it to somebody, if they're like, and especially if they're asking questions about you, it's like, hey, why do you do it this way? And if you haven't taught that, like you might not have thought about that before. And so having to like go through that process of like, okay, like why do I do it this way? And then having to verbalize it. A lot of times that can help you like tweak your own process to make it like as efficient as possible. And then as a teacher, like the best way to explain that, because sometimes the first time you explain it, it's not going to be great. But as you over time keep doing the same concepts and teaching people similar stuff, you're going to get better at quantifying that information for them.
I'll share one more thing about teaching online versus like in person. I used to do 5 weeks online, which was like once a week, every Monday we'd meet and I would do the stencil, I would talk to them, I would tattoo, and they would see a tattoo from design to finish over the course of like 5 weeks. And I would talk to them and they say they grasp it, they understand it, and you know, it's whatever they make out of it. I can't see their work or how they're tattooing. And then one time I did a 12-week program and I was like, maybe if I give them more time, they'll be able to absorb it. So I was working on a sleeve, and it was the same thing once a week for 12 weeks. But the last week, I was like, what if you guys came in person? And we'll do 2 days in person. And it was like a bonus. Like, just come in, we'll take care of it. And then what I noticed was on the 12th week, they still didn't apply the things that I was telling them. They said they got it. And I was like, why aren't you packing your blacks? Why aren't you edging, you know, your values? Why is this still a certain way? And it's like, some people just need to see it. It's one thing to grasp it in theory. And this goes back to what we were saying with like you can shadow and learn, but like until you actually apply, it's just theory. I love the driving analogy, which is like you can study how to drive. And I remember when I was younger, watching my dad drive or watching a movie or playing games. It's like I got this shit. Then when you're driving a car, it's like you're too hard on the accelerator, the gas. You're too sharp with your turns. So you have to like learn through experience. But then over time, if you can question how you drive or how you tattoo or how you run a business or social media, then it's like, what if I just did this a little bit differently? And then all of a sudden it's like, my turns are a little smoother, you know, my tattoos are a little smoother, my social posts are getting more traction. So it's being able to apply, but also like being so observant and questioning everything. And it takes so much work. Like, I don't know about you, but when I tattoo all day, I'm just asking myself questions like, is that too dark? Is that too light? Is this smooth? Is this textured? Like, is my posture right? Is this client sitting okay? And like, when I have to teach out loud, like I'm just gonna talk out loud. And I'm just constantly like, am I stretching too much? Is it too much ointment? And it's exhausting to tattoo because your brain's engaged the whole time. And I think that's the only way that you get better is like you have to constantly like talk to yourself. Don't get me wrong, I can tattoo, like it's not a big deal, but my tattoo's gonna be the same.
It's the biggest difference is getting in that mindset of like not going on autopilot, like being constantly engaged with what you're doing. And that's a skill in and of itself too, is like being engaged every single time you do a tattoo, like from start to finish.
I also, while we're on the topic of just tattooing in general, I'm so curious about your shop and tattooing your clients on a mat, correct?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. I'm really curious. 'Cause you have a whole routine. One, like you meditate with your clients and artists in the morning, and you tattoo on mats that they're on the ground.
On platforms,
Like, okay, so what's the purpose of that? Is that like, I want to know all about that.
So I was tattooing on in a regular chair and a massage table for a client one day, and I just felt inclined to like sit on the floor, like just cross-legged. But you don't do that at tattoo shops because the floors are typically dirty. So they had an extra massage table, and I was like, all right, let's set this up next to it. We lowered it a little bit, and I sat on there, and the table was a little wobbly, but I sat there with my legs crossed, and I was like, man, this is kind of nice. You know, like this is kind of cool. It's like I'm used to just sitting low on the ground anyway. And then when we were building out our shop, I got like these jiu-jitsu mats. We took the legs off of a tattoo table, and then it was just on the floor. The backrest still goes up and down. But I was like, all right, I can work with this. You know, it just felt more comfortable, and it felt like we were at home. Clients also liked it because there's this thing of like, you climb onto a tattoo table and it swivels and it moves, or it's a little bit too high, or they're trying to find their way down, they're not comfortable in there, or things fall out of their pockets. So clients actually loved it a lot more, that they can just like quickly step onto this table or come off of it, and they felt a little bit safer, lower to the ground. And I designed it so that it could have this feeling of like being at home. So my shop, we say welcome home. So when I first designed the place, everyone was tattooing on like lower platforms onto the ground. and that we were saying, so I was like, this was just my way. Like everyone's just gonna tattoo this way, and then the artist did it. But then at some point they were like, I don't like the way it feels. Can I just tattoo out of a chair? And I was like, fine, we'll put you onto a chair. Then another artist did it, and then at some point it was like, whatever works for everyone here, you know. And then now I was telling you, like certain places where it's like necks or certain parts of the lower forearm where I can't get them really comfortable, I like having them a little bit elevated, so then I'll sit in a regular chair. But it was just more so just based on a feeling. And what I liked about it is that when you sit on the floor, like you're not meant to sit on a chair for a long period of time. That you're sitting on the floor and it's like every 30 or 40 minutes, you want to get a little achy, you can change positions, you can kneel, you can lean on the side. And then at some point, it's your body's clock to just get up and walk around and stretch. Great for the body, but also resets the eyes, because we know like we're just going to be hunched over looking at this tattoo for 2, 3, 4 hours. And then by the time we step back, we go, well, I could have probably adjusted the values on this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just taking that break to reset the body and the eyes, I found that to be one of like the biggest factors, but also just the clients being comfortable there. We have, you know, in addition to the music and the incense, like a lot of clients are just falling asleep and they're relaxed, and we consider it like a spa day or, you know, a retreat for them.
Yeah.
It's just more so for the Zen feel.
You're friends
love that.
with Robbie, right? Robbie Latos.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah. So he did my whole back, and one thing I loved about getting tattooed by him is like he was cool. Like every hour we take just a quick break, and also like that gave him an opportunity to like step back. It gave and I feel like as a client, that's biting off an hour at a time is way easier than like, okay, I've got this 8-hour tattoo. It's like if I can make it to the end of this hour, I'll get a little break and then we'll get back into it. But and then every time her clients take a break, she's like, just stand back a little bit, and she squints at it, and it's like, yeah, definitely a good way to check the values, but also like reset as a client and as an artist.
Yeah.
I tell them anytime they go to the bathroom, just pause and stand up just for like 2 seconds, just so I can check it anytime they get up.
Yeah.
Just routine. That's so important. Like you said, you got to see it from a distance to see if you need to adjust any values or anything like that.
Yeah.
So also why oil painters, they stand up and their oil painting brushes handles are longer so they can stand back and do it, because that's how you catch things.
Yep.
If you zoom in and you're this close, you're going to focus only on detail, and that's not what makes a great tattoo.
Yeah, you're just like, I call like localizing, like you're just here, and
Yeah.
this is your range of values, but then you step back, you go, oh, there wasn't even any dark grays in there. Like
Yeah.
the dark grays are here.
Yeah.
You know, so then like you either make things too dark or they're too light, and then you have to go back and readjust everything
And
altogether.
you isolate things, isolate
Yeah.
color. You put all this color stuff here, but then none of that is over there. Yeah, totally.
One thing I want to get into before we go, because I've been staring at your tattoos this
They're
whole time.
amazing. I keep
Yeah.
looking at it
Thank
too.
you.
Yeah, tell us about your collection, man. Is your whole body tattooed?
No, so I have from my waist up, and then I've got a couple small ones on my legs. When I started, I wanted to do half of my body, all Cambodian statues like this for my brother, and then I wanted to collect from other artists on this side. So, you know, we started with my ribs. Well, my back was my first one. My brother did my ribs, and then I had like 2 other artists do some stuff here. But I've always seen my brother do large-scale black and gray tattoos, and no one has, you know, Angkorian statues like this, which is from like Southeast Asia, on this scale with this quality. So I was talking to him about it. I was like, I think it'd be really cool if we just do like, you know, just a full bodysuit of this stuff. I had some amazing work on my arm, but we ended up lasering it off. We lasered off my first tattoo that my brother did, so that we could do this whole style. And we've got about 150 hours in, starting from like 2011 till 2019. And then afterwards, we still got some space up top to finish. I'm going to start to do like a collection of different artists that I like on my legs. And, you know, I've got like a dragon here from Spirited Away. I got Mark to do, you know, a portrait of my dog on
fucking
here.
gorgeous, dude.
But I think that's cool just to like have a large scale single piece up top for my brother, which is like my mentor, my tattoo artist, my father figure, you know, to just have all this stuff. And it's sentimental to me as far as the imagery goes too. But then also just being an artist and like getting a piece from everyone whose work that you like, but not even just the work that you like, but like there's so many good artists now. I want to find like artists that I like as people who also do great work, and then just start to like piece a collection of stuff like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
So do you know how many hours you have like all in?
Upper body, we've got about 150 hours in.
Have you kept track of your lower body?
I've got like 8 hours on one side and 6 on another.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
gotcha.
my legs are still mostly empty.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you've got a lot of space to go.
I got half the body left to go.
I love that negative space, just like
the
right
crack
there.
of the texture there.
Yeah, it's killer. What's the worst spot?
It's progressed, but I would say my left nipple and my jawbone.
Why not your right nipple?
Because my left one, I got it done first. So by the time we got to the second one on the next day,
You
I
knew
was
what to
mentally
expect.
ready.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
let's do the nipple first, and then we'll get to the chest. And that was the end of, when I got my jawbone, that was the end of 7 days back to back. So we did my hands on day 1,
God.
left
God.
stomach day 2, left rib day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on the 7th day, I just remember like him just drilling my jawbone, and I just had that delirious laugh of like, and then he stopped because he just heard me laugh, and I was like, why'd you stop? Keep going. Like I'd like just hurry up and get this done. But by the end of it, like each day, it was just so good to see the progress. I was ready for an 8th day, but he had an appointment already.
Bummer.
You're a monster. That's fucking great. I just did a 3-day session on my back,
Yeah.
and that was rough. I cannot imagine 7.
But isn't it great though? Like after you do 3, you can kind of set that precedent for your clients, and then now
Yeah,
they sit for
that's
2 or 3 back to back too.
I love the end of it, dude, when you finally look at the tattoo. Because, like, I think hands down the worst spot is the side. Like, remember, did my whole side. And, like, he tattoos for long hours. So I'd have, like, some, like, 9-10 hour sessions where I'm just dying. It's, like, the fucking worst. But I'll tell you, like, looking at the mirror at the end when you're like,
Yeah.
dude, it was worth it.
Yeah.
That's a fucking badass
Absolutely.
tattoo right there. It's a cool feeling, for
Yeah.
sure.
I remember like just not having half of this all done.
Okay, so that's wild getting
Yeah.
that much coverage,
That much
too, in
coverage,
7
yeah.
days. Like, you look like a totally different person.
Yeah.
It's so
But
cool.
you know the healing smell of a tattoo? Like just after just wiping everything down, it's just like, God, but it healed so fast. Everything on the front panel healed really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Wow.
Well, cool. I feel like we could go all day. Got tons of stuff to talk about with the shop, fitness.
Yeah, I mean,
Tattoo
I like
collecting.
any and everything, you know. So I mean, it's just great to come out here. And again, the first time I met you was at the painting workshop, and then to see you do the winter symposium, like that was just a really awesome experience for you to like get. How many people did you have attend that?
Like 150.
Yeah, 150 people in a physical room to just like learn, observe, and ask questions, and then also to like network. That left everyone, and I brought the whole shop to come. That just left everyone like charged to just go back and like take things away and start to apply it. And ever since then, like everyone's talking about flow and color, and everyone's just excited. And I think that was a contributing factor to leading me to like, all right, we got to get more art back into the space, because if you're not tattooing and practicing there, like you can still learn and progress through doing artwork, color studies or drawing for composition, whatever that is. So that symposium had a big impact on like the whole shop. So thank you guys for putting that on.
Thank you for
Thank you for-
supporting
for
and
being
bringing
there.
your shop and wanting to learn and grow, being at where you are in tattooing. It's just so inspiring.
I
So
still feel like
thank you.
the new guy, like, and there's different levels. I am feeling like the old guy too, because I'm the oldest person at my shop now. But still, just like looking at all the artwork, not in just tattooing, like there's still so much that I don't know that I want to learn and apply. So like even the way you describe the painterly techniques, it was like, oh yeah, that is the way that you can tattoo.
Yeah. Well, then you look at your brother, and he's been tattooing like 35 years. Yeah. It's like, that's
I think you said it in one of your podcasts. Is like, do you want to be that tattoo artist? It's like, oh, he's tattooing 30 years. So you mean that artist is like, he's been tattooing like 30
Yeah.
years. Like, yeah, I want to. I want
love
to be
that
that
quote,
where you're
man.
constantly progressing.
I think Quinn said that at the symposium.
Yeah.
I think that's where it came from. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Quinn.
That's a great
well,
mentality
Bobby
to
and
have.
Quinn can
Yeah.
fight it out as to who had the original quote. But no, I love it either way. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
One other thing that I wanted to get into real quick, I wanted to ask it earlier, but for people who are hesitant to like spend the money on a seminar or a mentorship or something like that, because I mean, I think it's a good value, but it's kind of expensive. But anyway, like, what would you say to somebody who's like hesitant to bite off on that? Not just with you, but with any artist that they look up to.
You can't afford to not do it. Like the years of trial and error, and I use that line all the time. It will save you years of trial and error where like it's time collapsing. Like when I would like teach someone how to, like I had a couple apprentices, and like I taught someone in about a year to get to where I was in about like year 5. The next person, it took them like 9 months. The next person was like 6 months. So like I want to take everything that I've learned, condensed it, and if I was to start tattooing, how would I teach myself how to tattoo and get better quicker? If you came to me with a certain question or your portfolio, here's what I would have you do to get better at it. So you're not paying them for the day or the 5-week program or the 2-week program. Like, you're paying them for the years of experience, the years of struggle, to get all the sources of information for us to be able to condense it, and like, you just have to do a little bit here. And for them, it's just like, oh, I've tried that already. It's like, did you not fucking get how that's going to change everything with the way you tattoo?
Yeah.
But you got to pay for it, but you have to come ready to like absorb, learn, and apply it over and over again. But that's why you just have to constantly invest in yourself. Even for me, it's like just in the business development, in the artwork stuff, like you have to constantly learn and grow. Otherwise, you're just Casey Bao, is that his name, the painter?
Casey Bao.
I took a workshop from him, a painting workshop, and he asked me, he was like, so who are your favorite painters? I was like, I don't know, like Raphael, Michelangelo. I was just naming all the classical painters. I was like, no, like who are some contemporaries? I was like, I don't know any like contemporary painters. I don't have any friends who are painters. I don't even follow a lot of people online. Like, I just want to like do the work and like figure it out, and like I'm gonna get better at it. He goes like, well, if you don't follow anyone like contemporary, how do you know like they didn't already figure out what you're struggling to do? So like you figured out this thing, but then like you poke your head up, you go, oh, everyone's already doing that shit and they're doing better. You know, so once I got that, I was like, oh, I should constantly be looking up and out at what everyone else is doing. And if it's applicable to you, great, learn it. If you can absorb something, amazing. And if not, you can just kind of push it to the side. But you always have to keep your ears and your eyes open to see like what can you take. And I learn from everyone, whether it's apprentices, it's the artist that's been tattooing 2 years or 20 years or 30 years. Like, I can learn from everyone. And like, I would just watch somebody set up and like, that little tweak is going to help. The way you hold your machine, the way you do whatever the thing is, the way you do social media, or like anything, the way, like, I just walked into the shop and I'm just like, okay, this is that way, this is that way. How does that make sense for me? How would I apply it? And it's just a constant state of learning. If you don't have that, like, you're just going to be average.
And you can also,
we're not here to be average.
Yeah. And you can also take away things you don't like. I'm sure you see a lot of stuff in here. You're like, okay, that's how they do it, but I think it's better like this. So, but also to see it in action like that helps a lot, because it might not be something that you think about every day. Yeah, that's style. It's like how we live our life is like our style. We choose to dress a certain way, to talk, to eat, to do whatever a certain way, and we take things we like and we don't like, and then now like we live in a certain way. We tattoo in a certain way. Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
Love that.
Well, dude, it's been awesome getting to know you. I think when we first met was the symposium, right? Mm-hmm. That was our first time talking face to face. We had talked on the phone when you were opening your studio, but I feel like online, like you can be like a little bit intimidating because you're like very intense sometimes, and you're also like very disciplined. So it's like it's just like a little intimidating. But like talking to you, you're like such a nice guy. You're so down to earth. You're so humble, and it's just like you just set a great example for how to be as a person. As a leader, as a father, so it's been awesome getting to know you better, man.
Thank you. I try to show all the sides online because like we're multidimensional. Like there's times where like I'm very serious. There's videos of me angry online. There's videos of me like laughing, and like I like doing these podcasts because you can just kind of go through the whole range. And the thing about social media is like, especially as tattoo artists, I'll leave it at this one, is like the tattoo art is not good enough anymore. There's so many great, amazing, talented artists that if all you're posting is, I think, just the tattoos, then it's like, okay, like you've got to be doing phenomenal, amazing work that's going to stand out. And otherwise it's like people are booking for the artists. So who you are as a person, I think makes a big difference. And you can't forget about the work side of it too. So I love just being able to share anything and everything. And that just creates that connectability with people for them to reach out.
And I mean, you said it as a tattoo collector too, like especially nowadays, there's a bunch of artists that can slay a realism portrait, do it super realistic, and you're going to be splitting hairs when it's like which is the best artist to do that, but if you can like really connect with somebody and like spend a day with them where it's like just awesome hanging out with them, like that's going to be what makes the difference between like who you want to get tattooed by. So I'm even in that similar place as a tattoo collector. Like there's a bunch of really awesome artists there that I would love to have their work on me, but I only have so much room. Yeah. So I'm like, who do I want to spend my day with?
I know people who've lasered off amazing, high quality work from artists that they've had like shitty experiences on, because like that energy is with you. So
Yes.
you look at that tattoo and it's like, this is how I have to remember this day or this interaction. And it's like, do you want that to be the reminder, or is it like a good person, a good experience, and a great tattoo? I'd rather it be the latter.
Totally.
Yes, absolutely.
Totally. Well, I feel like that's a pretty good place to wrap up, man.
Yeah.
You got anything else you want to say before we cut it off?
No, I mean, you guys have been killing it. It's just been great to be able to like connect with you guys and to come here to see the space. And like, I just look forward to seeing like, there's very few artists that like I'm really into like everything that they're doing. And I think you guys do an amazing job here. So keep it up with the podcast, the shop, the symposiums, all that stuff's amazing. And I think it's a great turn for where the industry, the community is going.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much,
Same
man.
goes
That
to
really
you.
means a lot. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
amazing. It's great getting to know you more.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch. We'll be back. And then
Yeah.
again, I got to get a tattoo. I told you about that. So I got some space. So we're going to work on some stuff.
Oh my God. I will shit myself. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
That'd be amazing.
All right. Well, make sure you follow Andy on Instagram at Andy Pho.
Yep.
Studio's Upside Tattoo down in Austin.
Yep.
You got a website or anything?
Upside.tattoo.
Upside.tattoo. Dude, it's crazy all the
Yeah, that's
extensions
awesome.
you
The
can
dot
put on.
tattoo is
Yeah.
great. Although some websites don't take the dot tattoo. Whatever. Anyways.
Well, Upside.tattoo, you can find his website. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in.
Yep.